Thank you for joining us on the Veteran-Owned Business. I'm Cindy Palmer, and today we have Dan Hughes with Peak Safety Solutions. So, Dan, let's talk about your military background. You joined right after high school, and you were an infantry medic, right?
Yeah. Hi, Cindy. Thank you for having me on. And yes, that's accurate. Yeah. So right out of high school, I tried college and I wasn't prepared for it. And at that time, there was a war going on, Vietnam, and I thought I needed to be a part of it. So I volunteered, and it was interesting because I was in a basic training company that was almost all volunteer, almost all draftees, and there were very few of us that were volunteers. So it was an interesting mix in the barracks at that time.
Right.
But I did volunteer, and I did join right out of high school pretty much. So did not go to Vietnam, but I was with the infantry.
Okay.
And I was a medic, and that was kind of an introduction to safety in sort of a way. But yes, yeah,
Right.
I did that for 6 years. So on active duty. So
Nice. And that's great. Not like you said, not everybody volunteered. It's, so your heart was definitely in it too. So that's
yeah,
great.
well, it kind of helps when your family background is predominantly military. From my father's retired from the Air Force. My grandfather served in World War I. I had an uncle who was on the USS Nevada, or I'm sorry, USS Tennessee at Pearl Harbor. And cousins that served in Vietnam, and my dad was in Vietnam and Korea. And so it's kind of hard to get away from all of that when you're a young man growing up in that kind of an atmosphere and in that kind of a home life.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad's former Army. My grandfather was also Army. My son is in the Navy, and I'm prior Navy myself, but we told our daughter that only one child per family was allowed to go in. And she believed that until probably a couple weeks ago when we were talking about it. She's 14 now.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, I should also say that my son served a tour in Iraq. He was with the 82nd Airborne for 10 years. And now my grandson is with the 82nd Airborne, and he's at Fort Bragg. So
you do not look old enough to have a grandson.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to your whole family for serving the country. So
yeah, it's always been our honor. Yeah, always been an honor and privilege to serve. Yeah.
Awesome. So even with your medical background, you didn't stay in the healthcare industry.
No, I found out that I was attuned with it, and I was good for it in the field. But what I found out that when I left the service, I went to work at Texas Children's Hospital in the emergency room in downtown Houston. And I found that I was not emotionally capable of dealing with young children who were innocent and then injured through no fault of their own. And to me, that was a little more traumatic than I was capable of dealing with. And so I left there. I abruptly left that career field and just said, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done, which, you never say never, right? So I did. I said never at the time. And I got into the construction industry, trying to find my way, trying to transitioning vet. What do I do now? Because I figured that medical wasn't going to be my path. And now what do I do? And so I bounced around a little bit. I started operating forklifts for a drill pipe company in Houston, Texas. I built apartment complexes for a period of time in Houston, Texas. And then circumstances sent me back to California, where I had enlisted in the Army to begin with, and where I had graduated from high school. When I got back there, I found myself with an opportunity. I had two opportunities. I could go to Mare Island, which at that time was still pretty active with ship repairs, and I could learn to be a machinist. And that job started on a specific day. And then I had a second interview also that they were hiring a lot of veterans for an oil refinery in the Bay Area. And I looked at the two positions and I realized, well, one of them is immediate career field. The other one, you start as a laborer in the refinery, but the pay is almost twice as good. It's almost, 2 times better. And there's career advancement there too. And I thought, well, okay, so let me get away from the military for a while. Let me try the civilian life. because I don't want to go back to the Navy. I'd come out of the Army. I don't want to go into the Navy. That's not what I wanted to do. And I figured shipbuilding might be too closely related. So I went to the refinery. And as I went to the refinery, everybody there starts as a laborer. And so I thought, well, okay, I can do that. That's not a problem. And the pay was good. So I started in the refinery, and I worked my way from being a laborer to being an equipment operator again. So there I am driving forklifts and dump trucks and flatbed stake trucks and so forth. And that was okay. But then I had an opportunity to be a process unit operator, which I took, which meant I understood the chemistry of the process, and you worked out in the field and you worked on the inside on the board, and I advanced as far as I could in that. And I just realized that was just, not only was it, it was mentally challenging, and I liked that part of it, but it was a constantly rotating shift. So you'd go from days to swings to graveyards, then back to days. And it was a very short transition, and I just didn't recover well from all of that. And I just thought, I can't keep doing this. This is going to just beat me to death. So I went back into the maintenance organization. And it was shortly after that a good close friend of mine was killed on the job. He was burned to death, and it was somebody I had carpooled with. And I was closely connected with Ed, his family. And he was, he and I had fished together. We had been camping together. It was a horrible thing. And one of the things I discovered in the post-incident analysis that I was personally doing was, you know what? We had no idea what we were dealing with. We knew that there was flammable products in the lines. We knew that there was, but we really didn't understand the chemistry. We didn't understand the hazardous materials that were in there. And so I became very vocal. Of course, I had union support and I had union protection. So it was safe for me to be very vocal.
Right.
And I made a lot of enemies, I think, in a lot of ways. However, I was right. And what I was right about was, we've had OSHA for a number of years. We've had a hazard communication standard, 1910, 1200, for a number of years. And yet we've never been trained on that. We don't even have material safety data sheets here. And that was accurate. This was 1983, and this was very accurate. We had nothing. And that was very bothersome to me. And I kept making a lot of noise about it and was being pushed to the side because I'm just a laborer at this point. But shortly after that, we had a new safety manager was hired into the corporation and into the facility. And he heard about me or found out about me or may have heard me. I'm not sure what. But Jim came to me and he said, you make a lot of noise. You make a lot of good points, but you also just make a lot of noise and you're spinning your wheels. How would you like to put that energy to use? And I said, well, I don't think I understand what you mean. And he said, I would like to have you as part of the safety team. But in order to do that, there's a couple of things that have to happen. And in the meantime, you're just going to have to be patient. And so I was patient for about 6 months. And then in 6 months, he made some changes, some openings came open. I put my name in and I was taken in as part of the health and safety team, or what we called the fire and safety team at the time, because we did all of that: fire, safety, hazmat, rescue, a lot of fire, because we had a lot of fires. But I learned the safety from the ground up at that point in my career. And it was because a good friend of mine was killed.
Well, that's incredible because, I mean, I'm in the safety industry, but from a different aspect. And I know oil and gas, there's so many hazards involved with that. And being in a time where, OSHA is still kind of new, you still hear today where some people are like, I've been doing this for 30 years and I never knew. Like, oh gosh, it hurts my heart. Right. And having that connection to where firsthand how safety is so important, and to have that drive to just be vocal about it and to make sure that other people are going home safe as well. I absolutely love that. It's very dear to my heart. So who is your ideal client? Because you've got a broad scope of so many things that so OSHA and all that. But
that's a good question. I don't know that I can narrow that one down because my interests are so varied also. I have my portfolio is pretty big as far as what I've done. Oil and gas refining for a number of years. I did that job until 1995 when we went through a layoff. And then after the layoff, I had to start my own company, not this company, Peak, but I was with Code 3 and Associates. And we did a lot of emergency response training geared towards the petrochemical industry and small and medium-sized contractors. There was a fortunate time in 1995 because California had passed what was called Senate Bill 198, which was the Injury and Illness Prevention Plan. And so California, Cal OSHA mandated that every small and medium-sized contractor had this comprehensive injury and illness prevention plan. Well, most of them didn't, and they didn't know how to get there. So I came in with Code 3 and Associates, and we said, you know what? We can write that for you, and we can write your plan for you. And there's a lot of training that went along with that plan. Oh, by the way, we can do all the training for you as well. So in 1995, that was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And it was a way to earn a living because I had children in school still. I had a mortgage and those types of things that I needed a paycheck. And so it afforded me to keep doing the things I love to do, but at the same time, earn a check. And so then I targeted small and medium-sized corporations that were either in construction, mining, or in the petrochem industry. And, amazingly, most of them were in all three in the Bay Area of California because they did, when the refineries weren't doing something, well, this company did insulation and brickwork. Well, when the refineries weren't working, they were working the mines in Arizona. And they already knew me. So it was like, hey, can you go here? Sure, I'll go there with you. Sure. So I've been to Kennecott in Salt Lake City a couple of times with them and, worked the San Manuel mine when it was still open in Arizona for them because I had a relationship with them. And so it's building that relationship, as you said earlier on. That's really the key here. And so my perfect client, if you will, would be that small or medium-sized contractor that says, we need help. We're not looking for a full-time safety manager because Dan doesn't want a full-time job. And we need your help with this. And then as we bounce around to these different industries, if you have some capability where you can help us out, we'd like you to come help us out. And that's what I've done in the past. And that's what I'd like to do in my semi-retirement phase now.
Awesome. Yeah, I know there's a lot of companies out there, even if they have a safety manager, right? Like usually their scope of knowledge is kind of fine-tuned.
Right.
So they do need to outsource somewhere else to get, the nitty-gritty of what really could happen. And so that's incredible that you've got that big of a background. It's it could be helpful for anybody, and small, medium.
Yeah, even the larger companies. And so you hit on something that's really near and dear to my heart. Man, I get excited about this, and that's mentoring younger safety professionals. I love that. I love the opportunity to come in, and because you've got people now who are college graduates and they spend just a minimum amount of time and then they apply for and they pass the certified safety professional examination. And then you look at their background and you go, yeah, you passed the test, but there's a whole gap in your knowledge here that we could help fill in. And that's what I want to do. I want to help those younger safety professionals as they're coming up, or maybe they're not ready yet. I have a bunch of folks that I stay in communication with who don't have a college degree yet, but they're really good, solid safety professionals. And I want to continue to mentor them and help them and coach them and encourage them to get back into school, get your college degree. There are avenues now that are so much easier than they used to be when I was first coming up, and we can do this, and then we'll get you through that CSP exam, and then you'll have all the experience plus the certifications. And so I think there's a really good opportunity for good mentoring programs. And if I could help somebody put one of those together, that's where I want to be. That's where my heart is.
Nice. I love it. Because I think that's so important, because you've got all these people that know, they know what they know, but to pass that on to somebody else that can sit there and give it to the next generation,
Right.
just, and You have the experience, you have the knowledge, you have, all this background, and especially somebody that's just coming into this. I hear it all the time, like, and maybe not even the young ones, right? They've done something somewhere else and they love safety. They've done a little bit of safety here and there, but they don't have the experience. They don't know where it truly hits the heart, where like
Yeah.
this could really happen to us or somebody that we know.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the most tragic things I ever saw was, and I'll go back to the refinery that I worked at when I first got into this business, and I would walk through the shops, and we had in there the pipe fitters, the boiler makers, the welders. We're all in one big shop, and I would walk through and I would see this old guy, Tom, and Tom had to be 75, 76, 77 years old, almost on the cusp of retirement. He's ready to go. His body's kind of breaking down, but he's been in the refinery for almost 45 years.
Wow.
And I remember asking the question, what happens when Tom leaves? Yeah, we don't know. Well, who's working with Tom now? Or who is Tom passing on? He's got 45 years of experience working in this shop. Who's he passing that on to? Because there's a whole wealth of information there that's just going to retire when Tom does. And it was like talking to the wall. Nobody ever considered what happens when Tom retires. I don't want to be Tom. I don't want to be that guy. I'd rather pass it along. Matter of fact, if I have it, I want to share it. And safety is not proprietary, as you know, right?
Right.
Cindy? It's not proprietary. I mean, what we know, and we're willing to share. It doesn't matter what field we come out of. And so I remember being a process unit operator when I first went in the refinery, and there were two number ones, and the number one had control of the whole unit. And there were two number ones that I interviewed with. One number one said, just remember, I'll always know more about this unit than you will. And I thought, I don't want to work for that guy. And then somebody else came along and I interviewed with him, and he said, by the time I'm done with you, I want you to be showing me things that I don't know. And I thought, that's the guy I want to work with. That's the guy I want to work. Well, that's the guy I want to be also. That's the kind of leader I want to be, is the one that says, hey, Cindy, come with me, work with me, and start showing me the things that I don't know, because there's a whole bunch of them out there. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there I don't know. I'm almost 40 years in this business, and there's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know. I don't think I've even started to melt the tip of the iceberg here. But what I do know, I want to pass on.
That mentality is just super inspiring and super incredible. I love it to no end. Because if when you get into that mindset, if someone gets into that mindset where it's like, I know everything, I know it all, and you can't show me anything else, well, then things have just stopped, right?
It stops. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I don't know, sometimes they take for granted that there could be things that they haven't realized yet, just because they haven't dealt with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's all kinds of situations that I know I haven't dealt with yet. There may be some similarities, but there's some industries I've never even been to. I have no idea. I have no idea what a steel mill looks like. I've never been in a foundry. I don't know. I mean, I've seen them on TV. I don't know what a foundry does. I have friends that work in foundries, and they tell me, oh, you should come over here and do this. And I think, given the opportunity, I probably would, because I don't know anything about that work. So there's all kinds of industries out there that I've never walked into. And so the safety there is going to be so far different from what I've done. A lot of similarities, but a whole bunch of differences. And those are the areas where I wouldn't know a thing.
That's good to know. It's good to be honest with that, right?
Right.
But you're right. There are, even in the industry that you're not familiar with, what's safe, right? And what hazards are, and like, this looks like this. So maybe this is, and vice versa, right? They've been in that industry for who knows how long, and they maybe don't realize like certain things could possibly happen.
Right.
Whereas you had seen it somewhere else where it was something similar, and like, this is what happened here, and it's a possibility. So
yeah, that's that familiarity factor. And with the familiarity and the daily work, we start to develop scotomas. And do you know what a scotoma is? It's a blind spot.
Right.
And we start to develop that scotoma because we walk by it, and we walk by it, and we walk by it, and we observe it, and we walk by it. And pretty soon it becomes normal for us because it's in our scotoma now, or our blind spot. And somebody else comes along and goes, that's not right. And the light comes on, right? So yeah, it
Right.
happens in every industry, happens to all of us.
And that's what's dangerous. Even when you're
That's the
driving a
thing.
car, right? You drive to
Oh
the
yeah,
same place every single day and you don't think about, like, half the time you don't even remember how you got there, but you got
right,
there.
right.
But that's where, that's where that little, and they say what the majority of car accidents happen within, what is it, 15 minutes from your house?
Yeah, just 5 miles from your house. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So for
yeah.
sure. So did you find it easy or challenging to move from the public sector and working for somebody else to owning your own company? Although you've done it before. So
Well, I did have a little bit of a heads up on this time around because I had done it before. And I recalled a lot of the mistakes I had made in the past. And so this time I went at it a little bit differently. I had a plan. I knew what I wanted to do this time, and I knew how much I wanted to work, and I knew how much I could invest financially. And I also knew what kind of a time finance or what kind of a time allowance I had. So I wasn't pressured. I didn't need to go to work right away. So if I didn't earn any work right away, I was going to be fine. I had my retirement, my pension coming off my last employer. So that was okay. I knew that I had to set certain things in order. And so I got a lawyer. Do I do an LLC? Do I do an S Corp? Do I just work as a sole proprietor? What are the laws in my state? Those types of things. And so that consultation didn't cost me anything. But at the end, because it's somebody I'd worked with before, I went ahead and had him write up an S Corp for me. It made it right for tax purposes. It made the most sense for protecting my family and our investments and those types of things. And so that's what we've done. And then it was just a matter of doing the business development part. And the business development part, if you're a safety professional that's active, like I have been, you're a member of the ASSP. You have your certifications with BCSP. You have the National Safety Council, and I went to their conferences annually, or I went to the ASPSP conference, and I've tried to always remember that you never burn the bridges behind you. If you move on, you don't burn bridges. You just be polite. You always treat people with respect, and you always go out of your way to be friendly and cordial, because someday you may need to call on those people. And so you build your network, and you also do it by helping others out.
yes.
And it's just like, hey, I don't know anything about this. I don't know who to talk. Oh, wait a minute. I know somebody that knows that. And so you be the intermediary maybe, and just help them. Hey, I know somebody I can put you in touch with, whatever it is. And you build your network so that when you decide, hey, I want to do a part-time business in my retirement, you have your network already built.
That's a great that's a great tip for sure. Because just in life, it's good to have a network, right?
Yep,
And to
absolutely.
build those relationships, not just like, hey, I'm Cindy, and then 20
Right.
years down the road, like, hey, can you help me with this? Like, where have you been?
Yeah, yeah.
So
So having that network built is a huge thing. And then of course, you and I are members of a small site online. It's a social networking site with Safety Nights, and that's where
yes.
you and I met. And that's a new one for me, basically in the last 6 months. But I like those people, and we get to share almost on a daily basis, and it's kind of a selective group. Because it's not a real big site, but
Yeah.
it's one of those. And then LinkedIn has also been good. So there's a couple of sites I use, and then making cold calls. And there are businesses now that I'm making cold calls to. That's a little bit different again. So that's another story. But you got to get out and beat the path if you really want to make an income and make a living doing this. That's what it takes. And people will get to know you, and people will you'll earn their trust as long as you stay above board. Integrity is a huge thing with me, because I've seen safety professionals who completely lose their balance with a lack of integrity. And once that's gone, it's very hard to win back.
Yes. And that goes back to the whole military thing too, right? Like the
Yes.
integrity
Yeah,
and doing the right thing, whether somebody's looking or not. And
exactly. Yeah.
having your
yeah.
purpose, that, the purpose, what's the drive to what you're doing. If it's financial, then chances are you're probably not going to last long. But if your heart's in it, for sure,
It has to be where
people
your
see
heart's at.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I let everybody know. I mean, I say that all the time is, safety is not a passion for me. Safety is a calling. And it's been a calling since
Oh,
1984. So, I was called into this business, but I've never lost my passion for it. Even though I've been called into it, I've never lost my passion for it, and will probably maintain that. That's why I couldn't just retire. I can't
yeah.
just retire.
It's hard, right? If you
Yeah.
really have that mentality that this is what I'm here for, but this is my purpose in life. You
Yeah.
just can't quit just because, you're not working. So I love that. So what would be your biggest recommendation to somebody that wanted to start their own business, not necessarily with safety, but just in general?
Yeah, I think starting your own business, you have to have a plan. You have to have a you have to have a business plan. So you have to keep in mind, what is your business? And then develop a mission statement and determine for yourself, what are my core values? What are the values that I want to express through my business out there? And then how am I going to uphold those so I don't embarrass myself? Because that's a big deal. What I don't want to do is I don't want to put myself out there as being integrity and quality and passion and then not having those. Well, that takes discipline. And as we all know, discipline is something that will save you when enthusiasm on a day-to-day basis isn't there. Because sometimes it's not there, sometimes it's not there. You wake up in the morning, got a headache, or you're just not feeling good or whatever, but you have a deadline because you have a mission, you have things that have to be done. It's that discipline that will carry you through. And so you got to be disciplined. If you think you're just going to put a name up, start a web page, and people are going to flock to your doors and beg you to work for them, that doesn't happen.
No,
Yeah,
not
so
at all.
you got to work at it. Yeah, it's discipline. Yeah.
That's a great tip. All right. So that's all the questions that I have for you. Give me your pitch.
Well, my pitch is simply this. I believe in what I do. I'm very passionate about what I do. It is a calling for me. And what I want to do is I want to do everything I can to reach out, bring you and your organization to a level of safety excellence so that you can be a peak safety performer.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Cindy.